What's a life skill everyone should know by the time they're 30?
Mr.
Conflict
Reddit.
resolution. So many 18 children haven't figured out that just because they feel hurt doesn't mean they were wronged. I'm not targeting you, Barbara, I just have some constructive criticism for your budgeting strategy.
Especially in relationships. Address the issue. Don't let it fester and create resent. My wife is incredibly good at this, and she really helped me to get comfortable with speaking my mind. Former relationships conditioned me to think that talking equals arguments.
How to manage money. I've heard stories that at the apprentice school for the union I'm in, years ago the guy running it tried to add a financial literacy class, cause a lot of guys were making it to third year, which is about when you really start making decent money, and they'd go and blow it all on toys, like a boat or huge truck. Next thing you know, struggling to pay bills. Didn't come to fruition, but I still think it's a great idea, even if you took a finance class in high school.
Much of the problem is people thinking that something called financial literacy is only something wealthy white-collar folks would ever need to know. Or they simply don't think about the long term because they were never raised in that mindset. You'd really need to have older union people and workers on the job telling the juniors that it's something they need to know now, and giving real-life horror stories of people who blew all their money. And call the class something else, like here's how to not be poor when the money runs out, and it will. Workshop a couple of names with the juniors.
Now that I think about it, I feel like a lot of people have a very warped ideal of what investing is. It seems like people perceive it as you starting at 40 screens each with their own ticker/index desperately trying to time the market and make your riches from a handful of trades. Which if a person isn't working as a day trader for a living, there's absolutely no reason to put that stress on oneself. At the simplest, take some spare cash and stuff it into a VOO index and then forget about it. Doubling every 6-9 years for literally no effort at all is nothing to scoff at. There's also no need to be listening to the Wall Street bets people who are putting down $300,000 of options contracts on some small-cap pharmaceutical company all because they're betting that the next FDA approval cycle will cause it to moon. About 98% of those people will be the lost porn people, and only the remaining pinch of individuals will be the people saying, now I can buy my 40th house. You guys should have listened to me when I was spamming everyone about this 6 months ago.
How to find out how to do something you don't already know, the amount of people who choose to remain ignorant as they grow older. The other day I waited 20 minutes for a simple smoothie as two cafe workers, working together, couldn't figure out what to do with the smoothie machine after the blades wouldn't spin. It was that thing where frozen stuff at the bottom kind of clogs the blades and you simply need to give it a good shake or get a utensil in there to shift things around. I watched them discuss it, look at the blender, discuss more, touch the blender, look hopelessly at their manager who was busy helping another customer, then give up and finally start working on the next order. Over the course of 20 minutes one or the other would come by to press the blend button, in case it magically unclogged itself. See it wouldn't work, then move on. Finally the manager came by, gave it one shake, and of course it blended perfectly after that. These people were at least mid-20s. I wasn't even mad because I was too busy being dumbstruck. I had plenty of chances to make a suggestion for them, but I honestly was more interested to see how long their learned helplessness could possibly continue.
How to thank others when appropriate, and how to apologize when appropriate. Also know how to apologize. I've heard so many apologies from people that are clearly still unwilling to accept responsibility for their actions.
For everyone's reference in dealing with others, the anatomy of a proper apology requires acknowledging the mistake in a clearly articulated manner that demonstrates that you understand your transgression, expressing genuine remorse, and committing to change your behavior with the intent to not repeat the transgression in the future. Anything that doesn't include those three things isn't from the apology region of France, and is simply sparkling bullshit.
Household budgeting, this was my first thought. My wife and I have had a budget pretty much since we moved together, and it makes it so incredibly easy to have a proper oversight of all aspects of our joint economy. No arguing over money, because when our paycheck comes, a set figure is going straight into the expense account, and a set figure into our joint grocery account. What's left is our private money, and I could not care less what she does with her own money and vice versa. We had dinner and drinks with a couple of friends some time ago, and the discussion went into household economics. They were baffled by the idea of us having a set budget, and after explaining it to them, they wanted one too. It's literally just pulling up Excel or even pen and paper, and write down everything you expect to pay for in a month, and add a little extra for a buffer. It's a one-time job, and then if the mortgage rates go up, or you change the phone service or buy a new car or whatever, you just put in the new numbers. Mind-blowingly easy.
Cooking basic meals. It's not just about impressing friends. It's essential for survival and saving money. Plus, nothing beats the satisfaction of not having to rely on takeout every night.
People act like because they haven't learned to cook as adults there's no point to learning now, but there is. And when people say it's too hard to learn, I firmly believe they haven't tried. There are so many websites, and videos, and forums, and every form of internet you could ever want on how to cook for free.
The number of times I've seen people say shit like, takeout costs the same as groceries, or similar shit is so concerning. Like, I guess if all you buy is heat and eat prep food, that's almost true. But I can buy weeks of groceries for the price of eating out once. You can buy pantry items, like rice in bulk that'll last a single person or couple over a year for $20.
Most people who make that comment are making an unfair comparison because they started with an empty pantry. They just wanted to make stir fry, but they had to buy the whole bag of rice, new bottles of soy sauce and teriyaki sauce, 2-pound bag of nice shrimp, whole bag of carrots, whole bag of celery, a dozen eggs, a lemon, etc., etc., etc. That did cost more than 2 takeout meals would have cost, but they aren't counting the fact that they have enough left over to make the entire meal again. Maybe twice.
I recently saw a video talking about the difference between cooking to a recipe and cooking to what you got. To cook to the recipe means buying the specific type of oil that's called for, buying all 6 individual spices, buying 4 different and very specific varieties of vegetables, a new package of meat every time, etc., as opposed to just using whatever oil you got already. 'Cause sure, Spanish medium virginity olive oil will impart the tiniest extra but a flavor to your dish, but the canola oil you've got at home will cook your food just fine. And you don't need all 6 spices at $8 each. The $5 blend you've already got will get you 95% of the way there. Don't bother with whole entire packages of all the vegetables mentioned. Just grab a few of the ones you can buy individually, and use the red potatoes you've got rather than buying a whole new bag of yellow ones. In a lot of cases, you can even sub out proteins for whatever you happen to have around rather than constantly buying more. Pork dumplings? Switch it for some chicken if that's what you got. The point is, you can sub out many individual ingredients and still be following the recipe. The only real trick is knowing which ones you can / can't sub / leave out. Swapping baking soda for powder or vice versa doesn't typically go well. Just don't fuck around when baking. Do follow the recipe there, but please, if doing a significant amount of subbing and it turns out less than great, don't leave a negative review of the recipe.
The problem is novice cooks often don't know what they can and can't sub, which is something that just comes with cooking more. But then they don't want to fail, so they never start.
The sub r / identifigs is a great example of people trying to sub things in ridiculous ways. A common mistake I see there is when people use apple cider vinegar instead of apple cider. Those are going to impart very different flavors to a dish.
How to research topics and vet information sources. Especially in relation to news, too few people realize that to even get close to the reality of a story / topic, one likely needs to read / listen / watch from multiple, often opposing sources. This idea is very much why I gave up on Christianity after leaving for college. It's rare to find an unbiased, unaltered, factually accurate account of all sides in historical texts, e.g. history written by the victor. The idea of the Bible now just seems silly to me, a series of texts written by man, problematic in itself, translated several times, similarly problematic, especially when performed in a different historical period, about an all-powerful deity that decided, one day, to just stop making all public appearances. After flip-flopping between wrathful tyrant God, angrily flipping their minifigure game table to start a new game, e.g. Global Flood, and loving trinity of beings, Jesus, Daddy, and Casper. And when thousands / millions of humans manipulate the text for their own gain and or control, he doesn't come back, scratch the record, and say no, not like that, you genocidal morons. We've got to reinstill critical thinking, science-based learning, and philosophical reasoning into our young, or we, the US at least, are going to complete our Rome reenactment speedrun much sooner than anyone alive should be comfortable with.
Thank you all for watching. If you are interested, subscribe and watch other videos.